Cleveland Browns. Now the attention turns to this coming Saturday when the Chiefs play host to the Houston Texans. Will Mahomes be ready to play? Head coach Andy Reid.
This one's a little bit more day-to-day. Let's just see what he does, how he does, feels. He's always honest with me, so he's going to shoot me straight on it.
Mahomes says it'll be a group decision.
I'll get to work in practice and try to push it to see where I can get to. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to put our team in a bad position. So if I feel like I can play and go out there and win a football game, I'll play. And if I don't feel like that's the best case scenario, I'll let guys like Carson play. I mean, he's a guy that's won in this league as well. So it's just about pushing it this week, seeing where I'm at, and making the best decision then.
Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
I love spreading joy with gifts this time of year, but I try not to spread my budget too thin. Luckily, Kohl's has come through for me once again. I just went and used a 25% off coupon to score so many great gifts under $20, like cozy pajamas and fleece, amazing gift sets, and beauty must-haves. So if you're looking to give more for less this season, get to Kohl's. Select styles. Offers end December 24th. Some exclusions apply. See store or Kohl's.com for details.
Flo here from Progressive to tell you how you get more than great savings with us. You get customer service access through our mobile app, online chat, or by phone.
That's a lot of ways I can get in touch with you. I see what's going on here. You can't name favorites, but I'm your number one customer.
Actually, we offer all our customers these ways to contact us.
I'm sure you give just any customer your personal
company
contact info.
Well, you did call us more than any other customer this year. So in that sense, you are our number one customer.
Get help from Progressive through the website, app, chat, or phone. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
No way football is playing in the fall and winter.
Because the hits don't hurt as much when you're numb. Get the lowdown on all the sports action coming up right here.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Scott Wetzel.
All things running in today's edition of Football Full Circle right here on the SportsGrid Radio Network. Sirius Channel 159, Lisi and Wetzel taking you around the NFL for the next hour. It starts on Thursday night. Scotty, marquee AFC West battle. You got the Chargers and Broncos squaring off. Denver very hot in potential a wild card type of situation. They need to win this game. Right now on FanDuel, 2.5-point road favorites. Chargers right now struggling. They've lost back-to-back games. Passing attack a little inefficient, and Jim Harbaugh searching for answers entering week number 16.
Yeah, kind of weird that they would be road favorites, 2.5. Boy, you just no one's buying into the Denver Broncos, right? 7-0 Bo Nix straight up and against the spread as a favorite. Now he can't even use that to his advantage because he's not a favorite. I don't quite understand that. I guess it's just the Harbaugh reputation, and they think, okay, they're not going to lose 3 in a row. But boy, Joe, I watched a little bit of that game. You know, we were doing in-game live Sunday night against Tampa Bay. They really got mauled. They really did. So I don't think they're going to go into Denver and win. Might not be the same Broncos, home, advantage back in the 80s and 90s and even early 2000s. But I don't see the Chargers going into Denver and winning that football game.
Well, they're home. Chargers are home. They're a 2.5-point home favorite. Denver's the road dog. But here's the thing. I'm with you, Scott.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
But I'm with you. I watched that game because I like the over against Tampa Bay. And I can tell you one thing, right? Earlier in the year with Justin Herbert, they were running the football. They had a methodical offense. And then all of a sudden, once they opened it up, Herbert had success. He found Quentin Johnston, Josh Palmer. That offense had a solid passing attack. Ladd McConkey. Then injuries started to creep in over the past few weeks. We saw Disley, the big tight end, go down for a limited time. We saw Ladd McConkey. He's in and of the lineup. He's out of the lineup. And Herbert has been battered all season long in terms of the offensive line. On almost each and every long third down, he is getting hit early. He's getting hit often. And when they don't run the football effectively, they're completely one-dimensional. And then when you look at the flip side, as dominant maybe they have the number one scoring defense potentially in the NFL, this team right now in terms of the front seven got abused in the second half by Bucky Irving and the rushing attack at Tampa Bay. We know Denver wants to run it and Bo Nix is mobile. They need to bring that because they're not going to win this game if they can't shut down the run tomorrow night.
Yeah, I know it sounds crazy, Joe, but you just wonder if the Chargers peaked a little too soon. They were one of those teams like just as many people thought they would have a mediocre record as they would have a good record versus having a bad record with all the wide receivers that were gone. They came out fast, they played well. Now it's kind of coming back to the pack here a little bit. The injuries are starting them out. The fact that they have no wide receivers outside of the rookie McConkey, who's been great, but outside of him, they've nobody to throw the ball to. Running game's nothing great. So with all the injuries again mounting up, so you just wonder, it's going to take a lot for the Bengals to catch them because the Bengals don't have the home advantage or a head-to-head advantage the Chargers do. But it wouldn't shock me if they lost a couple of more games here, and with Cincinnati's schedule, which isn't the toughest, it's kind of like a mediocre schedule, that the Bengals could put a scare into them anyway for making the playoffs.
Well, you look at, they don't have a price right now on FanDuel for the Chargers to make the playoffs. They do on the Denver Broncos, Scotty, minus 1,200 to the yes. You want to take a shot, plus 680 to the no. They get that victory. And, that victory over Indianapolis last week.
That was huge.
If Jonathan Taylor doesn't fumble the football, they go up 20-7 in that game. Bo Nix didn't look good early on. That defense potentially maybe, I don't want to say gives up, but they get a lot of pressure if they're down a double-digit score heading into the second half. And it completely changed with the momentum. The turnovers killed Indianapolis last week. So I got to believe, right, the way Jonathan Taylor had success last week, that L.A. doesn't want to open it up. They don't want to have Justin Herbert get battered. They don't have the weapons to potentially just air it out like they did in the middle part of the year. This is a lower scoring game. I would probably take a shot at laying the 2.5, but I think under, just for the simple fact that Harbaugh knows he can't go to toe-to-toe with Sean Payton in this Denver offense right now.
Yeah. Denver games have been going over for the most part. They were heading into this year. They were a strong under team. And you figure with Bo Nix, that it's going to be another year of nothing but unders. But, man, it's been nothing but overs for them for various reasons. So, that game, I mean, out of all people, too, Jonathan Taylor, I mean, you said it, Joe. You score that touchdown, you go up 2 scores, you're completely dominating them first half, you go into halftime 20-7, and then you do the dopey double reverse option pass or whatever the fudge that was supposed to be. They got picked off and run for a touchdown. I mean, it's the fourth quarter, you're driving, you're down 4. What do you do with a play like that for? I mean, try to throw the ball twice all the way across the field. I mean, come on. That's goofy.
Yeah, that was 17-13. You're catching 4.5 in that game. You're within margin. They were on the 45-yard line as well. Yeah. You get another 15 yards. You make it 17-16. Most likely, you're in a potential shot to win the ball game in the final, 4 or 5 minutes. It's amazing how the momentum changes in some of these games, right? You saw it throughout the week on Sunday. You saw it on the doubleheader on Monday night. How Atlanta now, in terms of their situation, where they're at and how they play down to the level of competition, it's amazing in terms of it's anybody's game in the NFL. Anybody could come to play. But I do lean to the Chargers laying the 2.5. We'll see how that game plays out tomorrow night. I do want to bring up Atlanta in regards to moving on from potentially Kirk Cousins, right? They had already said that there's no guarantee. They've already maybe given the nod to Michael Penix this coming weekend. We know their playoff hopes are still on the line, battling Tampa Bay for the division. Right now, Tampa Bay has an 8-6 overall record. What do you think about the move to Michael Penix? I mean, Kirk Cousins has looked atrocious, Scotty. Not the same quarterback, and certainly not worth $50+ million a year right now.
Yeah, they're locked in for him for another 25-30 next year. He's got a no trade clause, so I don't know if they think they can move him or not. I'm a little surprised, Joe. I thought they would just say, you know what, you got 1 year to prove yourself. So you got the entire year. As long as we're winning, as long as we're competitive, you're going to stay in the game. Kind of like the New England Patriots a few years back with Cam Newton, when everyone was kind of scratching their head saying, why are you still playing him, right? Right. You got a giant team that you and I could quarterback. They're going to win. Then they got the monster game against Washington next week. So I guess they figure, let's give a game for Penix that we think he could do well and kind of get all the flaws out of a first game thing and then have him prepare for the Washington game next week. But I don't know. I'd go down with the ship. I would go down with Kirk Cousins unless we find out at the end of the year he's hurt. and they're hiding that, and they just come to the conclusion he can't throw the football anymore because he's just too hurt. But otherwise,
Right.
I think it's kind of strange. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, here's the thing, though. You sign him, right? Now, he's not living up to expectations. And on top of that, Scott, the decision-making is absolutely atrocious. He's throwing the balls into double coverage. He's not even locating wide receivers. Certainly can't avoid a pass rush in terms of any type of pocket presence or extending plays outside the pocket with his legs. I don't know what to say, but I watched that game on Monday night against Las Vegas. That was a beaten down team, and he couldn't throw for more than 150 yards. That's pathetic. So let me ask you this. Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers next year. If you're a team, which one would you buy into more?
Wow, that's a good question. That's a real good question.
And similar situation, Scotty, because they both have the Achilles. They're both aging, right? Now Rodgers putting up somewhat decent numbers in the second half of the season, right, in back-to-back games. Who would you take if you had to take one if you're an organization?
I'd probably take Rodgers. Just because you're starting ahead of the field. Rodgers is better than Kirk Cousins. Now, Rodgers got 4 years on Kirk Cousins. Cousins is only 36. Rodgers is 40, 41, whatever he is. But I would still take Rodgers if I had to.
That's going to be the off-season talk over the next few weeks. Does Atlanta move on from Kirk Cousins next year in 2025? We'll come back. We'll break down Week 16 in the NFL right here on Football Full Circle. Keep it where it is. We're coming right back.
Ball is coming.
Don't look like an idiot at work.
Know your stuff.
Football and everything else.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
The man accused of killing United Healthcare's CEO has been charged with murder as an act of terrorism. Luigi Mangione already was charged with murder in the December 4th killing of Brian Thompson, but the terror allegation is new. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg said Thompson's death on a Midtown Manhattan street, quote, was a killing that was intended to evoke terror, and we've seen that reaction. Thompson was shot while walking to a hotel where Minnesota-based United Healthcare, the United States' biggest medical insurer, was holding an investor conference. The Federal Reserve is set to announce a quarter-point cut to its benchmark rate from about 4.6% to roughly 4.3%. The latest move would follow a larger than usual half-point rate cut in September and a quarter-point reduction in November. Today's meeting could mark a shift to a new phase in the Fed's policies. Instead of a rate cut each meeting, the Fed is more likely to cut at every other meeting at most. The central bank's policymakers may signal that they expect to reduce their key rate just 2 or 3 times in 2025 rather than the 4 rate cuts they had envisioned 3 months ago. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
This year, American farmers will harvest 2.8 billion bushels of wheat and 15.1 billion bushels of corn. And to this day, American road workers have built 4.2 million miles of roads and counting. We're proud that John Deere machines rolling off the line here in the USA play a part in supporting Americans who work the land and build a better tomorrow. Nothing runs like a Deere. Learn more at johndeere.com/manufacturing.
Not to brag, but Progressive's Name Your Price tool is mankind's greatest tool ever. Even better than the wheel. Sure, without the wheel, we wouldn't have modern transportation or funny videos of dogs riding skateboards. But without the Name Your Price tool, we wouldn't have easy access to auto insurance options based on our budget. And, well, cars do need wheels. They also need insurance, and insurance never goes flat. Learn more about the greatest tool ever, the Name Your Price tool at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states. Fall is almost here.
It's time to stow the lawnmower and get ready for all that glorious action coming your way. Stay tuned to SportsGrid for all the strategies, angles, and info you need to get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Scott Wetzel.
All right, back on Football Full Circle. Lisi and Wetzel diving into week number 16 of the NFL. I got to admit, Scotty, I like these games on Saturday. I'm going to be covering college football, obviously, with the semifinal playoff games. But these games on Saturday, they have a little juice from the gambling perspective. I love one game. I want to get your take on it for Saturday. So now we saw Pat Mahomes get injured yesterday, over the weekend in the win over the Cleveland Browns, right? They said he did practice yesterday. to some capacity with the high ankle sprain. I know that you want to get Pat Mahomes in there. They're still fighting for a number 1 overall seed, but you need to make sure that Pat Mahomes is 100% healthy. I know they're playing a division winner right now in terms of Houston. I would still rest Pat Mahomes, but even if he doesn't play, it would be Carson Wentz, a veteran. They're laying 3 points at home against Houston. Total is 41.5. I'm telling you this right now, Scotty. Best bet for the weekend could be the over. Kansas City and Houston, 41.5. I think this game can get into the 50s. Wentz, no Wentz, Mahomes, 80% healthy. I think C.J. Stroud and that offense try to light it up. I lean overall to Houston plus the points. But what do you think about this matchup? Because the over is my best bet on Saturday afternoon.
Boy, I love the over Houston and the Dolphins, and look how that thing turned. I still can't believe that thing didn't have 47 points. I mean, it really is just amazing. Thanks for nothing to it, right? 12 stinking points. I don't see the over. And listen, Mahomes is always hurt. He's always hurt. You know, it's getting like I'm kind of tired of him and his ankles, and it's always his ankles. You know, he's always out there too. It is big, Joe. I mean, they got to go 2-1. I don't think Buffalo's losing. They got the Jets once and New England twice. So Buffalo's more than likely, bar a disaster, is going to win out. Right. Which means Kansas City's got to go at least 2-1 to stay 1 game ahead and be the number 1 team, which is huge because, not only are you the number 1 seed, you get home field advantage, you get the bye, so you get 1 less football game, so you can heal up. So I think, I'm sending him out. If he can walk, he's got to play. This is the big game. They got 2 road games at Pittsburgh, at Denver. If you're a Chiefs fan, you got to be rooting for Denver tonight and next week. This way, that last game is nothing for them. And maybe they would call off the dogs a little bit. But I like Kansas City. I wouldn't play the over, but I like
love
Kansas
the
City.
Over. Love it. Listen, Scotty, you can't.
They're strong team. You know that, right? Kansas City's a strong under team.
Totally agree. And I understand the numbers suggest that. And I know what I'm going up against. But I disagree, and we could get into the discussion. So if he's 80%, right, and I understand they're 13-1 overall, they have a 2-game lead, and I understand three basically playoff teams, right? You got Houston that already clinched the division. You got the Steelers, and then you have the Denver Broncos that pushed them to the limit in regards to a couple weeks ago in Arrowhead. But if you put him out here this weekend, let's just say, right, and let's say he's 85%, and he gets hurt again, now you're throwing away potentially. And even though you can have a first-round bye, what if he does severe damage to the ankle and he's unlimited for the playoffs, right? I would much rather rest Pat Mahomes this week, play him against Pittsburgh and Denver in the final 2 weeks, give him the extra week to heal, as opposed to rolling him out there, because your defense could still win this game against C.J. Stroud with Carson Wentz. I mean, Houston has not been the same offense over the past few weeks, right? But more importantly, they're not the same explosive offense that we saw last year. They're more of a grinded out, methodical. They haven't been putting up 30 points in every game like Stroud lighting it up. He's tailed off a little bit. So I would take a shot playing at home, rely on Wentz and rely on maybe the rushing attack and defense to take over.
Yeah, I would rather have 2 weeks off in the playoffs than 2 weeks off now. That's basically what you're picking. If
so you're saying this: win against Houston, then rest them the rest of the way, right? Because then, all you got to do, or win against the next 2. But there's no guarantee that that's going to happen, right? You have more of a guarantee of him getting hurt.
What is that team? You have any faith in that team this year? I know they did it last year, but do you think that team is going to win in Buffalo and in either Pittsburgh or Baltimore in the postseason, which is what they're going to have to do if they don't get the number 1 seed?
No,
I don't think so.
No, I know, and I know, but I like. Here's the thing: I still feel with Wentz, they can win the game without Mahomes against the Texans. I'm not sure against Denver, and I'm not sure against. And that sounds crazy, and I'm not sure against the Steelers in Pittsburgh that they can win with a backup. And that's what you're basically
They're
risking.
barely winning with Mahomes. What makes you think they can win with Wentz?
Well, just
they
because
barely win with Mahomes.
Because Houston hasn't been that dominant this year. Houston hasn't been the same explosive offense that we saw. I mean, they struggled with Miami. I mean, they allowed Miami into that game. Miami basically rushed for 2.7 yards per carry and 55 yards on the ground. I know that Kansas City can run it much better than the Dolphins can. So if it came down to that type of game, you got to believe playing at home with the defense, and as long as Carson Wentz doesn't turn the football over, easier said than done, that you can maybe win that game. Now, I do believe Houston pushes tempo, because that is something on the road I think you have to do. But we'll see. I love the over. This total can't be, you could put it at 41, 46, 44. You name the number, I'm going over on Saturday afternoon. And I don't care about the weather. I'm going over.
I don't see how you could, like, if you're telling me that you think Kansas City can win with Wentz, okay. But I see that as 20-17. I don't see Wentz winning a shootout. And when I say shootout, 27-24, 27-20, the game goes over. I don't see that at all.
24-20. Here's the thing. Wentz is probably going to chuck it just because number one, you want your backup ready, God forbid, of a playoff type of situation, right? And number two, they're getting potentially Marquise Brown coming back. You know that Houston isn't just going to run Joe Mixon into the line of scrimmage. He struggled last week against the Dolphins front seven. Expect him to struggle potentially. He's not going to put up 130 yards on the road, I don't believe. That means passing attack. We'll see. That's why they play the games. Could be a best bet on every show I do. Over Kansas City and the Houston Texans.
You'll be the only one.
We'll break down that AFC North battle coming up next on Football Full Circle.
There's smart.
And there's not smart.
Not smart is hope as a strategy. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Keep it here and win.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
In 1956, former Yankee shortstop Phil Rizzuto signs on as the team's radio and TV announcer.
Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to New York Yankee Baseball. I'm Bill.
The Scooter was a 7-time world champion and won the AL MVP in 1950 and was elected to the Hall of Fame in 1994.
And if dreams can come true for me.
For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the smart house, not a circuit was stirring, not even a mouse. The children were nestled all snug in their beds. Visions of iPhones danced in their heads. Then arose such a clatter of sensors and lights. From the chimney sprang jolly old Saint Nick. He was chubby and plump, dressed in glowing LEDs from his head to his foot that flashed and sputtered as he brushed off the soot. Suddenly, a bundle of toys and a motorized gizmo rolled out to a stop. I laughed when I saw this in spite of myself. Then a hatch popped open, and a robot arm went straight to its work, filling all the stockings. And laying a finger aside of his nose, giving a nod, his jetpack blazing up the chimney he rose. Away they flew, chased by a live streaming drone that rose from the thistle.
Happy Christmas to all and to all a good night.
Follow me at Chico Palvo on Twitter and stay tuned to The Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
Christmas, I don't want
Money Line.
As an Eagles fan, John Merrick, stay the course. Have patience. Try to turn this team into like the Steelers. Keep your coach around for 10 to 15 years because we're getting this type of productivity out of that coaching staff. As an Eagle fan, as a Commanders fan, as a Cowboys fan, make them all come back and say it wasn't their fault. I hope you do that.
Catch Money Line with Donnie Rightside and Kevin Walsh. Weekdays, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific. On SportsGrid. Sirius XM Channel 159. Wherever you go,
there you are.
Download the SportsGrid mobile app and we'll be right there with you.
So now you can get the winning edge anywhere.
Even while the wife's talking to you.
If you've got an earbud.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Scott Wetzel.
Continuing the conversation of week number 16, we've been breaking down the Thursday night and early games on Saturday. Just left off talking about Houston and Kansas City. We'll get into the battle in Baltimore between the Steelers and Ravens, but this just came out about 10 minutes ago. Adam Schefter reports, Scott, that the Browns officially named former UCLA starter Dorian Thompson Robinson as their starting quarterback for Sunday's game against the Bengals. So Jameis Winston out, DTR in. Moving forward, what does Cleveland do with their quarterback situation? No matter who starts the rest of the way, it doesn't matter. You still have Deshaun Watson on that roster. They need to obviously move on from him, but until they rectify that situation, this team is just mired in mediocrity and sub-500 records.
I think this brings up a bigger issue, Joe, with the NFL. And I'm surprised they haven't flipped just yet. But listen, there's just absolutely no reason for the Cleveland Browns, the New York Giants, the Las Vegas Raiders, and a few other teams to win football games. And I know we got 3 weeks left in the regular season, but there just isn't. So the Browns, in this case, are tied into Deshaun Watson salary-wise, but they don't necessarily have to be tied into him playing-wise. Like, if they end up getting a top 3 choice, like they're in a position to do right now, does that mean they wouldn't draft a quarterback because they got Deshaun Watson on the hook for another 2 years at that crazy money? Not necessarily. You could fit a quarterback on a rookie contract on that salary cap with Watson's, numbers. You have to tell Watson you're not playing, you're the backup, or maybe you get rid of him or something along those lines. But it doesn't preclude them from just saying we're moving on to Sean. And I think going to Dorian Thompson, he stinks, Joe. He wasn't any good at UCLA. He's not any good. I think they went this way.
Turnover prone.
They're not going to win any games. I don't think they're going to win games. Winston gives you a better chance to win. He clearly does. He's got his issues. Don't get me wrong. Well, he's an interception waiting to happen, but he's better than Dorian Thompson. I mean, come on.
No, you're right. Well, here's the issue I did want to bring up because we've seen this now play out. Look at the Kirk Cousins situation. Look at the Aaron Rodgers situation, right? We see now the situation in San Francisco with Brock Purdy, not the elite quarterback each and every week that we thought he had last year, right? All these marquee, and I keep going back to this, is this the tipping point? Is this the top? The top of the market? I know the salary cap continues to go up, Scotty. But again, is this the beginning of the end of maybe the large contracts for all these quarterbacks that fail to live up to the hype and certainly don't take your team to a Super Bowl? I mean, does it really pay to align yourself to a guy 50, 55 million when you're putting up numbers but your team is under 500?
I don't think it's topped out. Jaden Daniels, right? We'll use him because Caleb Williams has not exactly been great.
But they're in the playoff hunt.
But you're asking, is the money topped out or not? Is Dak Prescott in the Super Bowl? No. Has he ever gotten to a Super Bowl? No. Has he ever sniffed even a Super Bowl? No. But who makes the most money? Dak Prescott. So you don't have to necessarily be on a really good team as long as you're putting up good numbers. And what Jaden Daniels, when he's available, or eligible, I should say, for a contract extension in 2 more years, what do you think he's going to be worth? I mean, no, it's going to keep on going higher and higher and higher and higher. And the mediocre Daniel Joneses of the world are going to continue to kind of, feast off the big boys.
But let me ask you this, and I keep going back to this, is that you see Baker Mayfield on the cheap of $30 million. Yep. You see Sam Darnold on the cheap, leading this team to basically one of the best records in the NFC and NFL for that matter. When you get these quarterbacks, right, that are leading their teams to potentially a division title, a playoff appearance, putting up dynamic numbers, is there going to be an assessment at some point where the front office goes, you know what, maybe we don't need to have that guy or reach up and pay that guy, because unless he could get us to a Super Bowl, we can maybe get similar productivity out of a veteran backup that potentially with the skilled receivers, and I'm not suggesting not pay the wide receivers because it's a wide receiver league, right? Unless you don't have an elite number one, you're not winning football games. So at the end of the day, you need defense, but you need the elite wide receivers. I think that's more important sometimes than the quarterback.
Yeah, that's why I think the Bengals are idiots if they let T. Higgins go. Pay him the money, man. Just pay him the money. You need 2 wide receivers. You clearly do. Otherwise, you'll just be, a mediocre football team.
They would be absolute idiots if they allowed Jamar Chase to walk out of the building. We'll see how it plays out over the next 4 or 5 weeks and in the offseason. We'll come back, breaking down Week 16. Keep it where it is.
The winning edge. You've got it. But not everybody has it, because not everybody listens to us. But we're working on that. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes suffered a high ankle sprain in last Sunday's win over the Cleveland Browns. Now the attention turns to this coming Saturday when the Chiefs play host to the Houston Texans. Will Mahomes be ready to play? Head coach Andy Reid.
This one's a little bit more day-to-day. Let's just see what he does, how he does, feels. He's always honest with me, so he's going to shoot me straight on it.
Mahomes says it'll be a group decision.
I'll get to work in practice and try to push it to see where I can get to. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to put our team in a bad position. So if I feel like I can play and go out there and win a football game, I'll play. And if I don't feel like that's the best case scenario, I'll let guys like Carson play. I mean, he's a guy that's won in this league as well. So it's just about pushing it this week, seeing where I'm at, and making the best decision then.
Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
If you've been putting off holiday shopping, you're not alone. But the holidays are next week, so it's time to kick things into high gear. Macy's Holiday Countdown Sale is here to make last-minute shopping easy with great deals on top gifts like cozy hat, scarf, and glove sets from Coach, Kate Spade, and more for $49.99. Boxed up and ready to give. Easy. So if you haven't gotten to everyone on your list yet, don't be too hard on yourself, but do shop Macy's ASAP. These deals end Thursday. Savings off already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.
This year, American farmers will harvest 2.8 billion bushels of wheat and 15.1 billion bushels of corn. And to this day, American road workers have built 4.2 million miles of roads and counting. We're proud that John Deere machines rolling off the line here in the USA play a part in supporting Americans who work the land and build a better tomorrow. Nothing runs like a Deere. Learn more at johndeere.com/manufacturing.
Days are getting cooler.
The shadows are getting longer.
You know what that means? It's football weather. So bundle up and keep it here for all the latest strategies and gridiron information. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Scott Wetzel.
Between the Steelers and the Ravens, Scotty. So we'll see how that game plays out. Right now, when you look at it in regards to the spread, you got Pittsburgh that lost 6.5-point dogs on the road against Lamar Jackson. Now, I know Lamar put up dynamic numbers. I know they covered the 16.5 against the New York Giants, Scott, but it's a divisional game. You look at the game that Pittsburgh just had. It's back-to-back road games. I get that. But 6.5 against a team that they beat in their house 16-13 earlier in the year. I mean, come on. I'm inclined. I like the 6.5 with the road team here. I'm not shocked. Listen, Baltimore might win, but they're not winning, I believe, by a touchdown. I just don't buy that.
16 of the last 18 meetings have been decided by 7 points or less. The underdog in this series, 29-10-3, including 24-6-3 last 33 games. When the line is 3 points or higher, the underdog 23-4-3. I mean, I can give you like 1,000 of these that says all underdog, not just slight underdog, just overwhelmingly underdog. So why all of a sudden is this thing? Not only is it 6.5, it was 6 yesterday, Joe, because we talked about this game, me and George Kurtz, and now it's 6.5, so it's going even higher. I think people are starting maybe to jump off the Steeler bandwagon. Is that the case here? You know, this is a tough little gauntlet, right? Philadelphia last week didn't play well. Baltimore this week, Kansas City next week. They've had such a Cinderella run season, but maybe it's coming to an end. But I can't lay 6.5 with Baltimore against Pittsburgh. Anybody else, yes, but not against Pittsburgh.
Now, the total is intriguing to me. 45.5. Because we've seen these games potentially trend to the under, right? And watching the Pittsburgh game get under, I thought that game would sail through the 42.5, and it wound up at 27-13 against the Eagles, slightly under the closing line for the total, right? Back-to-back road games. You got to believe that Pittsburgh wants to run the football a little bit better, right, than they did against the Eagles. Does Baltimore throw caution to the wind and try to light it up early, right? Knowing how they struggled early on in Pittsburgh. And I think that total is indicative of an over too, Scotty. I mean, 45.5, that total based off of everything that we've seen, based off the series and knowing, I believe, I forget what it was, that I'm trying to think of the stat for the last 6 or 7 games prior to the last meeting that they had. And let's not forget that meeting in Pittsburgh, that total was 48.5. Remember? And it was a dead under, right? They had 26 or 29 points total. You didn't even have a touchdown basically in the first half. The fact that it's only off 3 points from that, I'll take a shot with the over. Something's up. That total should be basically 42, 43.
I mean, Baltimore went over against the Giants, for goodness sakes, last week. You know,
Yeah, but
that's
was
how
because
bad
the Giants suck and they did it all on their own.
I get it. You know, the different reasons why games go over. I get that. But it just goes to show that, you know, no matter what the number is, no matter who they're playing, Baltimore has been an over team this year. It's the craziest thing, but that's how it is. 45.5, boy. I can't do it, though, despite what I just said and all that. It's Baltimore, Pittsburgh. It's 3 yards in a cloud of dust. It's Lamar choking. It's just, you know, give me the under. Chances are we're not getting 7 touchdowns, which is basically what you need, especially when you got a field goal kicker with Baltimore, Tucker, who, you know, can't hit an extra point, let alone a 30 or 40, 50-yard field goal anymore.
So you look at Lamar Jackson's number in that game, 226.5 is the prop. Now, if you're just thinking about the success that Jalen Hurts had last week, right? One of his best passing performances of the year. A.J. Brown broke out with a touchdown. Devontae Smith basically, you know, had a very successful game. Do you take a shot over the 226.5? Or do you take a shot on an alt? He's coming off 250. Could he get to 250 again? That's plus 158. You want to take a shot at 275? It's plus 280, Scotty.
I would do that just because we know John Harbaugh, and he's been so reluctant to hand the ball off to Derrick Henry and make it his team. He just feels every single game in these big games, he just feels compelled to tell the world that Lamar Jackson's the best player in the NFL when we all know he's not. So chances are he's going to get that opportunity again. I bet I would go over pass attempts as well as yards, because they're going to continue to throw the football. And I think Pittsburgh will kind of force them to throw the football and put an extra man or two in the box and stop Derrick Henry.
So now let me ask you this. And, you know, if you want to take a shot on touchdowns, 2 touchdowns for Lamar is basically minus 110. You want to take Lamar rushing and throwing over 281.5. If you think he can get to 250, 275, then that's a hands down bet.
That's
right?
not bad.
That combines both.
Yeah.
You got to believe he's going to get at least 15 yards on the ground, no?
Oh, yeah. I'm surprised. They didn't really give you that big of if they're giving you 281.5 rushing and passing, and what is his passing? 226? So that's about 50. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're counting for 50 yards. Yeah, I think he gets that. I'd be more comfortable with that, actually, than maybe even over the 221. But he'd have to have like 100 yards rushing in order to get that number without really getting the passing number. But
correct,
I'd be okay with either one.
All right, so they have some, you know, FanDuel does a great job. They throw out the weekly specials for week 16. Let's see where you're at. How high can I get you? Okay, we'll start. I'll wet the palate a little bit. You ready? Josh Allen and Drake May to each have 10 rushing yards in each quarter. Each half, excuse me. Each half.
Okay.
10.
10.
Plus 430.
I hit one of these last week. 2 running backs. It's Charbonnet and who was the other guy to have 25 yards rushing each half. And I hit that. Paid like plus 450. So I like
that. Did you hit it with that touchdown run in the fourth quarter?
No, I had it well beforehand.
Okay.
Well beforehand. I forget who it was, but I had it well beforehand. Drake May 10 yards. I'm not worried about the other guy, about Allen. May would be the guy, obviously, right? 10 yards, though? Yeah, I'd take a flyer on that.
All right, so let's kick it up a notch, as they say. You ready for this one? It's Dallas and Tampa Bay this week. Your Mike Evans coming off a huge performance, right? $159, multiple touchdowns, and we saw
He's great
CD
since he's come back.
Right.
Yeah.
Mike Evans and CD Lamb each to record a 30 yards receiving in each half.
Ooh.
7-1.
8-9. Yeah, I was gonna say 8-9 to 1. Okay, 7-1.
Now,
I'd like it to
come
be a
on.
little higher each half.
30
That's a lot.
yards. What do you mean?
I would take it if they offered less money just once per game. I would do that. In fact, I would parlay the two. Like you can bet on what the longest reception going to be for a particular player. I would just as soon bet one time, not each half. I don't like that.
All right,
20,
here's one that
30.
All right, so here's one that I think I could get you in on. You ready for this one? This one is juicy. It's 25-1. You got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, right? Playoff hope slim, but they're still on the line to each record 10 receiving yards in each quarter this weekend. 25-1.
Each quarter, but it's only 10. I would take a flyer on that. You know, that's one of those where just get it into the second half and I got a live 25-1 ticket.
10 yards, Scotty. 10 yards. Come on. Joe Burrow might throw it 60 times this weekend. We'll come back with more weekly specials, some of the other games on the docket for Week 16.
Yeah, it's getting cooler. Football weather is here. Stay tuned for all the latest odds, strategies, and info. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
The man accused of killing United Healthcare's CEO has been charged with murder as an act of terrorism. Luigi Mangione already was charged with murder in the December 4th killing of Brian Thompson, but the terror allegation is new. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg said Thompson's death on a Midtown Manhattan street, quote, was a killing that was intended to evoke terror, and we've seen that reaction. Thompson was shot while walking to a hotel where Minnesota-based United Healthcare, the United States' biggest medical insurer, was holding an investor conference. The Federal Reserve is set to announce a quarter-point cut to its benchmark rate from about 4.6% to roughly 4.3%. The latest move would follow a larger than usual half-point rate cut in September and a quarter-point reduction in November. Today's meeting could mark a shift to a new phase in the Fed's policies. Instead of a rate cut each meeting, the Fed is more likely to cut at every other meeting at most. The central bank's policymakers may signal that they expect to reduce their key rate just 2 or 3 times in 2025 rather than the 4 rate cuts they had envisioned 3 months ago. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
This year, American farmers will harvest 2.8 billion bushels of wheat and 15.1 billion bushels of corn. And to this day, American road workers have built 4.2 million miles of roads and counting. We're proud that John Deere machines rolling off the line here in the USA play a part in supporting Americans who work the land and build a better tomorrow. Nothing runs like a Deere. Learn more at johndeere.com/manufacturing.
Not to brag, but Progressive's Name Your Price tool is mankind's greatest tool ever. Even better than the wheel. Sure, without the wheel, we wouldn't have modern transportation or funny videos of dogs riding skateboards. But without the Name Your Price tool, we wouldn't have easy access to auto insurance options based on our budget. And, well, cars do need wheels. They also need insurance, and insurance never goes flat. Learn more about the greatest tool ever, the Name Your Price tool at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Ask any player and they'll tell you any advantage is important.
That's where we come in.
SportsGrid delivers gaming strategies and analysis 7 days a week.
The winning edge.
It's your advantage to more winning
more often.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Scott Wetzel.
All right, continuing the conversation and breakdowns, we'll go through some of the best games. Scott and I are only together for 1 day a week, so we might as well get some thoughts, some feeling out process about some of these games this coming weekend. Big battle in the NFC East, right? You have the hottest team potentially in the NFL, Philadelphia Eagles, that won their 10th straight going up against Washington. Remember about 4 or 5 weeks ago, this game played out on a Thursday night. Washington held the first half lead. In the second half, it was all Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. They win it going away, Scott, at home. Now they're laying 3.5 against Washington. Total 45.5. We saw Washington, get pushed to the limit by New Orleans. I thought that would be a difficult game, just a tough spot going into the Dome. I like Washington here. I really do. Plus the 3.5. This, to me, has got, shootout written all over it. 45.5, I think we can get the game into the 50s. But think about the run for the Eagles. Emotional against the Ravens, they win it. A letdown spot against Carolina, they win but don't cover. Then another emotional game with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now you got to go on the road. I'm going to take the points, potentially outright, plus 152 with the Commanders.
All right, yeah, I like the other side. I think the Eagles see the light at the end of the tunnel. I think they see the Detroit Lions struggling, one more injury after another, and I think they see that number one seed is for the calling is theirs. And it's amazing, Joe. You say it with only 17 games that every game counts, but you don't really appreciate that until you get to the end of the year. And Washington, seemingly secure in a playoff spot, right? Well, not really, right? They got Philadelphia this week. They could lose. Then they got that monster game next week against Atlanta. They lose that. Now, all of a sudden, you lose the head-to-head tiebreaker, and a 2-game cushion right now is gone, just like that,
right.
And then they got to finish up with a road win, road game at Dallas, and we saw what happened the first time they faced the Cowboys. So it'd be a shame if this team, which has been nothing but a bright spot for the NFL, ends up not making the playoffs, but they're in a little bit of trouble. I can't step in front of that Eagles train. That you said they had the letdown game against Carolina, find a way to win, and really nearly lost that game if the kid holds on to the football there at the goal line. But I think they're going to be just as excited for this game as they were last game. So I think Philadelphia wins and covers.
Even with the hook. Even with the hook, huh?
No, even with the hook.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Do you feel like Jaden Daniels still Rookie of the Year based off the performances that we've seen and seen Caleb and Bo Nix struggle just a little bit last week? What do you think about Jaden Daniels? Brock Bowers coming on, still putting up numbers. Do you feel like Jaden signed, sealed, delivered Offensive Player Rookie of the Year?
I think so, but it's amazing. It's almost by default. Like there's no way in the world you can give it to Caleb Williams. I mean, that Bears team is just a disaster. Could you make a case for Bowers and the Raiders? Yeah, but they're so bad. It would be tough, right? Bo Nix would be the one. But if he's coming back to the pack here a little bit, it would be, Daniels. But I tell you, I wouldn't be putting any money on it because, again, they lose here and somehow or another they lose to especially the Michael Penix, the head-to-head matchup with the rookie quarterback in 2 weeks. Now, all of a sudden, Bo Nix is the guy, and whether he comes back to the pack or not, I think Nix has done, more, especially if Denver makes the playoffs and Washington doesn't. That's why I wouldn't necessarily be betting. I don't know what the odds are for Daniels. I'm sure they're overwhelmingly in his favor, but just like I said with the Heisman Trophy, I thought that race was going to be a lot closer than what people were talking about, and it was. I think this is pretty close as well.
Well, he's expanded because you saw Bo Nix struggle a little bit. He had interceptions in the first half against the Colts. Jaden Daniels still got the victory against New Orleans. Right, so he's minus 4,000 right now on FanDuel. Daniels is. Bo Nix 12-1.
That's crazy.
Outside of that,
I think Daniels.
Okay,
I think Nix rather is a good price.
But I'm not betting minus 4,000. There's no doubt. Right. I agree with you that the playoffs, that's a huge factor in judging and gauging Rookie of the Year, because if you're putting up numbers, that's great. But if you're putting up numbers and your team is successful and you're leading this franchise to a wild card or division title, that's a whole nother aspect that gets added value when you break down these odds, right? It's perception. We always talk about it. You could put, compile stats in the regular season. What do you do in the playoffs? If they lead their teams to a wild card appearance and Daniels is on pace for that, I agree with you, hands down. It's between them. If he somehow, some way slips and Bo Nix all of a sudden lights it up over the next 3 weeks and Denver's in the playoffs, you can make the argument that Bo Nix is deserving in terms of that breakdown. What about this game? Because this game I'm a little perplexed on in regards to the breakdown for me, just because I don't know where to go. And just when you look at it, how about this one? Seattle and Minnesota. The line scares me a little bit, Scotty. 3.5. Seattle's, was winning. They won 4 straight. They lose and got beat up by a physical Green Bay team. They couldn't shut down the run. Minnesota's really not running the football as effective with Aaron Jones, right? So if you're just looking at this game straight up, I actually think the Seahawks might be live as a home dog on Sunday afternoon. That is one dog that I actually like this coming weekend.
Yeah, and not too many covered in one or covered for that matter last week. So you would think they might be a little bit due here. I'll throw, by the way, one more name. I don't think it's going to happen, but just how about Ladd McConkey for the Chargers? Number 17 overall receptions. I know it's a little bit behind Bowers. He's got 1 or 2 more touchdown receptions. He's the entire offense. With the Chargers without him in that lineup, they're awful. I don't think he's going to do it, but a playoff team, he has a big game tomorrow night, on national TV, and the Chargers win, and McConkey gets 10 for 120 and 2 touchdowns, and Bo Nix is throwing 2 interceptions. Check off Bo Nix, and now we just got to have Jaden Daniels screw up a little bit.
I would think Bowers because he has the ability to get through Puka's 105 rookie receptions. Right? He had 87 entering the game on Monday night. I know we didn't light it up, but if Bowers sets the rookie record for receptions, I don't know how you could give it to Ladd McConkey. But it's a conversation. It's something that needs to be discussed as these few weeks play out. We'll come back. We'll talk more Seattle, Minnesota, some of the other games on the docket for Week 16. Keep it where it is.
The boys of summer become the champions of fall. The World Series is on its way. And SportsGrid brings you every angle. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. SportsGrid TV and radio networks are the premier streaming video and audio channels dedicated to serving the sports wagering audience. Found on major smart TV platforms and streaming on SportsGrid Radio and SiriusXM Channel 159. SportsGrid's real-time data, expert commentary, and entertaining analysis transform viewers into informed sports enthusiasts. Our weekday radio lineup begins with the early line at 8 a.m. Eastern with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Donnie joins Kevin Walsh on Moneyline at 11 a.m. Eastern, followed by Football Full Circle at noon Eastern. Kaplan and crew join the party at 1 p.m. Eastern, and Pharrell Coast to Coast keeps things rolling from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Get in the mix with Kevin Walsh and Game Time Decisions at 6 p.m. Eastern. Evenings simmer with Carver and Lisi, then boils over with Gabe Moritzi on Sports Rage Late Night at 10 p.m. Eastern. To find out where to find SportsGrid that's best for you, go to sportsgrid.com. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right. For about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back. But you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. That's 800-797-1292.
Think of us as your cool roommate that has this innate gift of somehow always picking winners and never bugs you about doing the dishes or paying rent. Sports gaming strategies and information 24/7. Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Scott Wetzel.
Back on Football Full Circle, diving into some of the Week 16 action. I gotta say, I like these games on Saturday and Sunday, even though we have the college football playoff. There's multiple games to obviously wager on, and not the best matchups, but still players are fighting for contracts, incentives. So there is some, will to put up dynamic numbers. Look at the game against the Jets and Jags. That was a dead game, 2, 3, and 9 teams, and they put up basically over 55 points in that matchup. Who do you like in Minnesota? Because I'm telling you, I'll probably take the dog with Seattle. That line smells to me, and I've been on Minnesota in recent weeks. Don't like them in terms of this spot. Total, I could see an under 42.5 because, again, might be cold, might be damp. What are you taking in Seattle and Minnesota, Scotty?
Well, are you telling me Geno's playing? Because there's a big difference
I gotta
between him
believe
and
that he's
Howell.
playing. Or do you think it's Howell? Even with Howell, you're telling me Sam Howell that threw for 21 touchdowns last year, granted 21 picks as well. He looked like a deer in the headlights in that game last week. He didn't know. Not know. Half of these guys don't know where to go with the football and their backup. What are they doing on the route? Do they practice at all?
I know. It's crazy. Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing. If you give me Sam Howell from last year, okay, but Sam Howell from the other night, he looked just lost. It's just like, you're right. Do they not get any reps at all? These practices are so short and so limited nowadays. You can't hit, but once a week, if that, in some cases, not even that. I think it's like 15 times a year once the season begins. Believe it, it's crazy how rare that these guys practice. So, I'm going to go with Seattle, though. I'll take my chance Geno plays. The Vikings, they play pretty well, I will say, on the road, but this is a big game for Seattle. Didn't play well at all against Green Bay. Perfect bounce-back spot. So I'll take the Seagirls, as I like to call them, plus the 3. By the hook, it hopefully gives up to 3.5.
All right, how about this total? Because I probably could push you. Aaron Rodgers looks like the Aaron Rodgers of old, right? All of a sudden, him and Devontae Adams are connecting. Got his 100th reception touchdown against Jacksonville. That total was 40.5. We saw the Jets now in back-to-back weeks put up over 24 plus points, 26 against Miami. They win it last week going away. They put up a 32 spot. 46.5 going up against Stafford, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams, Cooper Kupp, who, by the way, cost me a lot of money. I took him at a half a yard Thursday night against San Francisco at plus 108. A half a yard, Scott. How low can you go with a guy that averages basically 40, 50, 60 yards a game? He cost me money. 46.5 to me seems light.
Yeah. I don't know if he's injured. Remember those rumors a few weeks back about how the Rams were seemingly willing to trade him, and we're all scratching our heads saying, why would they be willing to trade Cooper Kupp? Makes no sense, right? But he's really fallen off. Between him and Nacua, it used to be like a 50-50 split. Now it's basically all Puka. Kupp's not been the same. So weather should be fine here at least it is anyway today. It's supposed to be tomorrow. Who knows by Sunday? But here in New Jersey, New York, weather shouldn't play a factor. And if that's the case, you're right. Back-to-back games, probably the best 2 games, right, for Aaron Rodgers as a New York Jet, which isn't really that long. I grant you that. But let's go over the 46.5. Rams offense has got to have a bounce back. They got extra days to prepare after playing so poorly against San Francisco.
Mini bye. Right.
Yeah.
Mini bye. So I agree with you, right? So you would lay the 3 like me and go over. Probably, it might be a little colder as we inch closer to Sunday. They're expecting maybe 30s, 40s, maybe. But still, I still believe in Stafford on the road, and I still believe in the Rams much more than I do the New York Jets. How about New England and Buffalo? 14.5, Scotty. 14.5 with Drake May. 46.5. Buffalo needs the game. If Kansas City loses on Saturday, it could open up, right, that whole victory at home for Bills Mafia. But 14.5 in a divisional. I'm going to take the points with New England. Don't love it, but I'll take the points.
I'm going to go Buffalo. I know this is a classic letdown spot. They've had a 4-game gauntlet of Kansas City, San Francisco, the Rams crazy shootout, and then the Lions last week, and now they got New England. You talk about just a classic letdown spot, but 30 points or more in 8 straight games now, so they're good for 30 at home. Is Drake May really going to put up 2 touchdowns plus? I don't think so. Give me Buffalo. I'll lay the 14.5.
Ooh, we'll see if Josh Allen can continue his dominance. For Scott Wetzel, our great producer, Danny Ohlers, I'm Lisi. We'll see you tomorrow right here on Football Full Circle. Have a great week, everyone.